Today we'll be discussing managing Chocolatey packages from within ProGet. Here with me today is Rob Reynolds from Chocolatey. Rob will take you through a high-level overview of both ProGet and Chocolatey and then run a live demo of both products. Afterwards, he'll finish up with a question and answer session. If you have any questions, please use the sidebar on your GoToWebinar control panel underneath the Questions tab. At this point, I'm going to hand things over to Rob. Hi, Rob.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, other folks, depending on where you are in the world. And let's get started. I am Rob. I am the founder of Chocolatey, and I have over 10 years experience in infrastructure automation. So today, as Pat said, we are talking about Chocolatey and ProGet, and then we'll have a demo and some questions at the end. So always like to start off with why. Why Chocolatey, right? So software management accounts for quite a bit of the automation or the management that you do when it comes to Windows systems. And there are a lot of different ways to bring software to Windows, whether that is one of those different 20 or more types of installer formats that are out there, zips or other ways. It's kind of like the Wild West in a way. And really another reason why is many of you, if you're not using Chocolatey, or if you are, you're already deploying software and managing software on your Windows systems. So you likely already have deployment scripts of some sort. It could be install.bat. It could be a type of PowerShell deployment type of file, or you're using some sort of system like SCCM to do that deployment. So when it comes to Chocolatey, Chocolatey is really about reducing the amount of work that you need to do there. This didn't come out so well on the slide as it got bigger, but that's there. And another reason why is when it comes to Jeffrey Snover, folks at Microsoft, they're saying that DevOps is really that path forward when you're working with software management and automation of Windows machines. So I'm not sure he meant shirking here. He probably meant shrinking, but that's fine. All right, so, and really, when people start asking, but seriously, why Chocolatey? When it comes to creating packages, working with Chocolatey, all that, you'll notice that you'll never hear anybody else tell you that it's a pretty awesome experience when they're trying to do software management, right? Chocolatey goes beyond programs and features. It goes beyond just running installers. It is secure. It is offline. So a lot of people are confused and think that Chocolatey requires the internet for some reason. It does not. In a lot of approaches with organizations, hundreds and hundreds of organizations that do use Chocolatey, they don't use it with that community repository that is online, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes as well. So what is Chocolatey? Chocolatey is software management. It has packages that are just fancy zip files. Of course, it gives you access to PowerShell. It really lets you take some of that software deployment in the scripts that you've been doing and kind of package them up, take them to that next level. We like to think of Chocolatey as Sane software management. It does easily manage those different types of native installers, zips and binaries, plus you get PowerShell as mentioned. It also integrates with all the different configuration management tools and RMM tools that are out there, and has a lot of business-friendly features, even in the open source edition. Now, Chocolatey has been around for over 6 years. It is a nice single unifying interface. And again, it is decentralized, so you have multiple places you can get packages, including internally or in internal areas. Because it's built with PowerShell, that provides the ultimate in flexibility, and also means you're not learning a lot of new technologies to use Chocolatey. You probably already know all the technologies already that you would need to know to be able to use Chocolatey itself. Now, for organizational and internal use, that's kind of where we're going to focus the rest of what we talk about, even though we're going to be going through some of those features with Chocolatey. And keep in mind, there is that community package repository. That's where you go, chocolatey.org/packages. That is in the public domain. That accounts for maybe 5% of the packages that are out there. Yes, there are a lot of packages out there. However, most of them are internal, so you'll never see them. The reason that folks don't use that community package repository is there is distribution rights in that public domain, which means that those particular packages don't get to have the binaries put into the package itself. They have to reach out to the internet at runtime. And that's a big reason and kind of a failure point with that public repository. And the reason that we recommend that organizations, when they need that ultimate reliability and trust and control, they shouldn't use that community package repository. Just a quick mention of the repository itself, though. There's over 5,000 types of packages, 5,000 packages there, and a lot of installs over the last 5 years. Now, everything that goes through there does get safety checked, does get checked for quality and ability to install, and is moderated by humans as well. So even though all of that, we still don't recommend that organizations use it just because of that one failure point, that is distribution rights. So Chocolatey does come with some features. We're going to start talking about those, but first I want to talk a little bit about the difference between open source and Chocolatey for Business, or C for B. In open source, that's really about package management. It does work well in organizational use, and it is used in that way in a lot of organizations. Where Chocolatey for Business really takes that to the next level. It comes with complete software management, which is really wrapping package management and taking it to that next level. So it's a much smoother experience for folks. Builds right up on top of the open source, but it also brings with it better system integration. We're adding endpoint management and a lot of other different features, plus GUIs. Now Chocolatey is pretty smart when it comes to installs and upgrades, and it is tracking different types of things. And as you're seeing here, a command line tool, but also we have a graphical interface, and that is our Chocolatey GUI. What you're seeing here is the newer edition of our Chocolatey GUI, and some of the places that we'll be taking that. And so we'll talk about that once we get to the demo as well. Now, another feature in Chocolatey is typically when you create a script that you need to install some software, you would need a script to uninstall that software as well. However, Chocolatey does have what we call our auto uninstaller, and in about 80 to 90% of the cases, you're not going to need that uninstall script, because Chocolatey, as it installs it into programs or features, the software, it's going to know how to automatically remove it. Chocolatey does integrate with a lot of different tools that are out there. Pretty much anything that can run scripts it's going to integrate with. And of course, everything you see here, box starter and above, is very tight integration. Chocolatey does integrate with all of these different tools. When it comes to System Center itself, System Center can actually act as a repository for your packages as well as that deployment mechanism, because it does have that binary distribution and distribution points. So we do see some of our customers do those kinds of things to deploy out packaging. Shifting a bit into reporting and auditing. So when it comes to seeing what you have installed, Chocolatey goes beyond programs and features. It's going to show you all that software that you're deploying through Chocolatey, that are zip archives, that could be your own internal software. Could just be configuration that you're managing through Chocolatey and you're wanting to version. And so you're able to do all of that with Chocolatey. Plus you're able to see applications that are not being managed with Chocolatey as well. And one of the things that we'll be adding here in Chocolatey for Business is what we call package audit. So at this time you can see what's installed in what version, but you don't know who installed it and you don't know when, right? And we're going to bring that information easily available here as an additional a few switches that you would add into this particular question, right, to this query. Now, another thing about Chocolatey is, unlike some things, it does very, very detailed reporting by default. Now, even though on the command line or in the interfaces, that reporting is not as detailed, it is capturing very detailed reporting in the background. What this allows is if somebody had an issue or you're deploying out to many, many machines and you have a couple that run into issues, you're going to be able to grab the logs and be able to really see environmental information, other state information about that particular machine that may reduce the need for you to do any kind of rollback and trying to recreate that state so that you can see how that install happens. So a lot of times this is going to give you that information you need to ensure that you know how to go forward. All right. Now, another thing is really seeing what will upgrade on your next maintenance window. And so when you're managing everything through Chocolatey, you're able to run this nice report called Choco Outdated, and it's going to show you a nice little report of everything that's installed that's going to get upgraded. And the interesting thing here you're seeing is false at the end of all these. We had to cut off the image a bit for the slide. What that false is am I pinning to this old version, right? Now, if I installed Java 6 and I needed it to stay on Java 6, I could actually install it and then pin that package to that version, and Chocolatey supports that. Now, in Chocolatey for Business, because there could be multiple people working with these systems, we always need to know why, so we're adding that reasoning into Chocolatey for Business, where you can say, I'm pinning it, here's the reason why it's pinned. Now, we call our packages software deployment packages. Now, those Chocolatey packages are, again, just fancy zip files, easily deal with the versioning. You can manage install order. We call that dependencies, and so you can say at the last responsible moment, I need to ensure this other software is installed before this one, and it'll manage that for you. And also access PowerShell, so we have over 30 built-in functions that really take some of these complex software management tasks and make them very simple, but also metadata about both the software and the package. Chocolatey Packages, we know when you are flipping over into Chocolatey packaging from whatever legacy or prior way that you were doing packaging, there is a bit of a learning curve, so we've tried to make that quite a bit easier with our Choco new command. And this brings a lot of packaging and has a lot of README and just-in-time documentation, is what we like to call it, right into that packaging for you. So it really helps you along that process. And you can also create your own packaging templates. Now, when you're doing packaging and you're running Choco new, what you get by default looks like what you're seeing on the left there. And this new spec is really what you see on the right. We're actually going to see this once we hit that demo and how this actually comes out by default, so you can see how we have cleaned that up. Now, in Chocolatey for Business, after talking to organizations for a few years, we realized that we needed better visual interfaces because there are folks that are accustomed to that. We also realized that the ramp up or the conversion from whatever that legacy way into getting all of your packaging into Chocolatey was something that had a little bit of ramp up time, and we wanted to really ease that process for folks. And so out of that came Package Builder, and Package Builder allows us to have Chocolatey look directly at installers, executables, MSIs, zips, whatever, and be able to generate a fully automated and unattended deployment in about 5 seconds. Now, if I'm doing this manually on my own, and I'm pretty good at packaging, I can create a package somewhere between 2 and 10 minutes. And so trying to do this against Package Builder is going to run circles around even me. So it's very, very fast. Now, you could point this to an archive of installers, and it's going to go through, and about 70% of them it's going to be able to fully automate. Now, there are what we call mega installers like SQL Server, Visual Studio, Office, that install a lot of different components, and they require an XML file as part of that unattended install. Package Builder does not generate that yet, so it's not able to do that. It will arrange some things for you so that you can move down that path of adding in that additional work. And so it is still going to help out a little bit there. There are some installers that are particularly nasty that you know, the detection of what they are is not going to work out as well, and so it's not going to catch those either. Fortunately, we do have our package internalizer, and so this allows us to look at those 5,000 packages on the community repository or somewhere else, be able to reuse a lot of the logic in those packages, but make them 100% offline and reliable. And it does that by downloading the package and then finding all of the components where that package downloads resources, and it downloads them and either embeds them into the package or preps them for somewhere internal. Now, it does this in a matter of seconds, and we see a lot of people that do this will end up putting this into a Jenkins or some other type of CI type of approach where they set up a job, they have it watch packages on the community repository that they trust, that they've vetted, and when newer versions of those become available, they become available to their internal test repository within a matter of moments or however often they're running these particular scripts. We're going to see this, and it's going to be kind of interesting as well. So another big aspect of Chocolatey for Business is really about that synchronization. We have what we call our auto sync, and so when you install a package with Chocolatey, that package is typically going to install software into programs and features. Now, once that software is in programs and features, somebody could manually uninstall that software. They could manually upgrade it, or it's like Chrome and it upgrades every 10 minutes. Now, Chocolatey's Auto Sync allows Chocolatey to see those changes happening on the system and ensure that the state of the packages matches what's going on with what's happening outside of Chocolatey. So here in this image, you're seeing that somebody manually uninstalled 1Password, and so Synchronize is just ensuring that that 1Password package is also removed. So if you have anything like an antivirus where you install it through Chocolatey, and then for some reason somebody manually removes that, and Chocolatey is being insured by something that's going to put it back every so often, that it will work appropriately, and that's how our package Synchronizer's AutoSync does work. Now, another aspect of Synchronizer is a lot of times you may have some legacy inventory reporting systems that are only looking at what's in programs and features, and so you'd really like to see all of the stuff that Chocolatey is managing also in programs and features, even those things that don't have those underlying native installers. And so in the image here you see Launchy. Launchy has an installer, and so it's going to show up just as it always would, where something like Screen to GIF is a portable package. It's just a zip. I'm able to also see that over here in programs and features, and you'll see it has a little indicator, has the Chocolatey icon next to it. We can also uninstall directly from programs and features now using that, which is particularly handy as well. Now, the last aspect of our synchronization is really dropping Chocolatey onto a system and being able to run one command to look at all the software and programs and features and bring it under Chocolatey management very quickly. And it does this all on that system. It doesn't reach out to the internet or anything. We run Choco Sync, and it's looking at everything that's installed, and it's looking at all the information that's available right there on that system to generate that packaging on the fly, baseline it to that package install, and then provide that packaging code back to me so that I can take it back to source control, me being the person that's running this command. Now, the interesting thing about the Synchronizer or Choco Sync command is once we get package indexes implemented, and we're looking at doing that in quarter 3 or quarter 4, we're going to be able to have Choco Sync also look back at our sources. And so when it's looking at 7-zip 16.2 here, it's going to say, hey, do I already have a package for 7-zip 16.2 in my sources? If so, I'm going to use that. Otherwise, I'll optionally fall back to generating this package on the fly. Now, another aspect of the Business Edition is really our self-service component. And so if we have non-administrative desktop users, we're going to allow them to install and upgrade software. And so what we do is we install Chocolatey, we place it into background mode, which means we add in the additional Chocolatey agent service that's running in the background that has it. And then we give folks this nice pretty GUI here, which is the Chocolatey GUI we saw earlier, and mark those particular sources that we want to give them access to be able to install from as allowed for self-service. And then they're able to install and upgrade their own software. Now, this background service, the Chocolatey agent, if we want to be able to schedule maintenance windows, one of the things that's going to be in the future upcoming for that particular service is the ability to set up maintenance windows directly through there so they can ensure all that software does get upgraded. There's a lot of other features that you'll find in Chocolatey itself. And keep in mind, internal sources, you can do that even in open source Chocolatey. And also our Choco Upgrade All, so what we call our Windows Update for all of your third-party and internal software. Being able to pass information in and change the way the package actually works at runtime through install arguments and package parameters is there as well. And also, we have a pretty big open source community, so if you're looking to get support, there's definitely ways to do that as well. Another thing that folks don't always know is if you have your own type of pre-flight checks and other things that you want to add to all of your internal packaging, you can create PowerShell modules and install them as Chocolatey extensions, and then you're able to use those particular functions without having to load up that PowerShell module. Chocolatey will do it automatically, so it makes it appear as those functions are actually built into Chocolatey. And you can manage those as packages as well. And so some of the other features that we have in our Chocolatey for Business package throttle. This allows us to slow down Chocolatey. By default, it's going to go as fast as possible to download those packages and download any resources those packages need. However, sometimes we need to be able to slow that down for low bandwidth environments that we may be deploying to, and we don't want to overload those bandwidth pipes. Direct installer, so if Package Builder can fully automate an executable installer in MSI, we can just point directly to that with Choco install and Choco upgrade, and it's going to be able to do that. When it comes to some of those nasty installers I mentioned earlier, where Package Builder and Package Internalizer aren't able to cover that, we have our professional packaging services that allow you to engage with our support team to get those automated in 5 days or less. And let's see, our ubiquitous install directory options. So if you need to install software somewhere else, like the D drive, and you want to make that easy, in the open source edition, you can change that, but you have to be pretty intuitive with each of those native installers and how to pass those switches through. We've made that super simple with our ubiquitous install directory option, where you just pass one switch. On our roadmap, we do have a central management UI coming. All of those reports I was talking about will be aggregating automatically into this central management UI. Consider it a dashboard, also consider it a way to interact with your Chocolatey environment. And you'll be able to see the state of software inside of your organization. And some of the things that we'll add into that over time are role-based access control, or RBAC, and support for probably Package Builder, Package Internalizer, and then being able to test those packages that it builds as well. Other things that it's going to hook up to add in is our, we got it there, Package Grid and Deferred Installer, where Package Grid allows me to look at other Chocolatey installations and be able to install packages from my peers versus going back to a remote source. Deferred Installer allows me to push packages down to those machines and hold until I hit a maintenance window. If I have really tight maintenance windows or I need some sort of change management approval, I could use Deferred Installer for those types of things. Pack validation, so when I run Choco Pack or creating the package, I would be able to actually see all of the warnings and quality control checks right there at that time versus waiting until I deploy out packages to one of particular sources that actually check those kinds of things. We do plan to put signing into packages. Mostly this is more geared towards that open source repository, or the community repository, sorry, because we want to see the traceability, kind of who signed this, and the authentication of getting back to knowing that this was signed by that particular person. And that's pretty important in that area. Choco deploys a command line ability for us to run Chocolatey commands against remote machines, and so definitely looking forward to that as well. Also, Nano support, package management, if you've heard of it, aka the built-in package manager for Windows 10 and Windows Server 2016. It's also known as OneGet. The name's a bit of a misnomer. Package management doesn't actually manage any packages whatsoever. It only manages other package managers. So it's a package manager. And the official provider for that is still in the works, but we do plan to have that coming in 2017. So there's a lot of things there. So package repository, let's talk about ProGet. Now, ProGet is a package management system that's going to let you have feeds or package repositories. And there are multiple types of repositories that you can use with ProGet, Chocolatey being one of those types of repository. We'll actually see this on the next slide, but there's an image of all the different types that we have available. And then you'll be able to do aggregation. One of the interesting things about ProGet is being able to set up a repository and multiple repositories, and then one repository that kind of acts as the point where it's looking at all those other repositories and aggregating them as one repository. So on your client, you can say, I have one source, even though behind that source there's multiple sources, whether local to that ProGet repository or remote. Now, some of that is Oh, multiple site replication is pretty interesting. So if you have multiple data centers or kind of a geographically dispersed environment and you want to set up multiple ProGet repositories, you can push to one ProGet repository and it'll automatically replicate those packages to all of those other sources. And so that's a pretty nice feature in ProGet Enterprise. Also, package promotion, that's kind of interesting. So if you have multiple environments, dev, test, staging, production, and you're wanting to create packages and you get them into the dev repository, and then you find that that one does work pretty well, maybe this is your internal software, maybe third-party stuff, you can actually promote that package up to the next feed, until it gets to production. Taking a look at a couple of screenshots here. Now you see that they do have quite a few different repositories available here. So Docker, Maven, NPM, Ruby Gems, and also VSIX. So lots of good stuff there. So let's take a look at a demo. Maybe that looks pretty good. Okay, so when we're using open source Chocolatey and we're creating a package, that's kind of that first touch point. Now, one of the things that's interesting is if I do have PowerShell installed, I'm using PowerShell with Chocolatey, I can install a profile, and then I get tab completion with Chocolatey. It's context-sensitive tab completion as well. And so that's kind of handy when I don't know all the different commands, or I really want that nice tab completion that I get from a fully PowerShell type of environment, except I'm just using Choco, right, that command line side. Now, I'm going to do Choco new, and we're going to create a package for Adobe Reader just to kind of see what that gives us by default. Now, you see here it created some files, and let's take a look at these just to get a bit closer. And nope. There we go. So there's a README, and that README is particularly handy when I'm trying to learn how to do packaging, but also it's a really good reference for all the different environment variables that I have available. So I can see all of those that are listed as well. Then I have a couple of files here. These are only related to the community repository. This default template is very much a generalist approach, and it's going to cover a lot of different scenarios. And you can kind of see those different scenarios as you scroll down inside of the install script here. It's kind of showing you how to install a Visual Studio package, how to install a zip package, all of those different types of uses that we normally see with Chocolatey. We'll come back to that in a second. So one of the things is our metadata file, and that is the new spec. And when you're using Chocolatey and you're generating this out, you're going to see that we heavily document this. And we do this for a few reasons. We really like to get you into the pit of success, really kind of help you down that path to understanding how to set up some of these different things and how version is package specific, but we like it to match as closely with that underlying software just so that there's not a lot of confusion. So we get our package specific section, we get our software specific section, and then we also, not only do we point you off to how to handle versions and dependencies, but we can also show you examples right here. So for some reason, let's say Adobe actually depended on Java. It doesn't, but let's say it did. If we depended on version 6, but it needed to be less than version 8, I already have a really good example of how to set that up. Kind of leads me into understanding how this notation works. All right, so then we have our before modified scripts. So this is before upgrade, before install. I have the opportunity to shut down processes or services. I have an uninstall script, and in this uninstall script, again, 9 times out of 10, I'm probably not going to need this, but in case I do want to be explicit, I can specify it here. If I'm doing an MSI, all I need to do is change this, and then ensure that this is set correctly, and it's fully ready to go for that MSI uninstall. And there are other PowerShell functions that I can also use, and there's some nice links to those. The big one is our install script. And so when you're an organization and you are creating your own packages internally, we recommend that you're going to embed or put those binaries right into the package itself. And Chocolatey is really good for right up to about 500 megabytes. It's the size of the package for that. After that, we recommend kind of splitting that off to maybe a share or downloading that from another repository on ProGet or somewhere else, right? Somewhere internal though. And then Typically, again, the embedding or the sharing, when you're doing that, we want you to use install Chocolatey install package, aptly named. Naming is hard as compared to install Chocolatey package. The difference between the two is this calls that file directly from where it is. It doesn't try to copy it anywhere. It doesn't bring it to a local location, an temp folder. Install Chocolatey package will. So it will, if you're looking at something that has a setup executable and it's got a lot of files surrounding it, and you call install Chocolatey package pointing to that off of a share, you'll find it's going to download that setup executable over to that temp or cache location, and it's going to try to execute it from there. And all those files that it needed that were surrounding it are not going to be there anymore, and it's going to be really confusing. And so that's where the instructions and the documentation kind of lead you to this instead. All right, so now that we've kind of looked at that approach, now let's take a look at what we can do when we start addressing stuff like package builders. So I have a few files here, a few installers, and I have this particular script here for creating packages. And so I'm just going to kick that off, and we're going to kind of look at it and talk about it as it goes. It may beat me done talking. And what it's doing is it's just looking into that installers folder, and we're going to say, Chocolatey, you're pretty smart. I'm just going to point you directly to the installer. I want you to go ahead and create those packages for me. And it's going to do that very quickly. You can see it's already finished with all 4 of them. Now it's also I'm pointing it to say Chocolatey new file as well. I'm going to point it to a UNC path or a URL. In this case, I don't actually want to embed those installers into the package. I just want to use them for detection. And so it's going to use whatever I pass. Now, if you're doing this, you're probably noticing, I'm noticing, don't use localhost, and please don't use admin shares. They're not very scalable. Use it in actual share. This is what we have for the demo example, so that's what we're going with here. And it did beat me done. So now, if you've never seen Chocolatey packages before, what you'll see here is I have the packaging aspect of creating this one with the Puppet agent. And if I was to step in and actually take a closer look here and just change it to a zip, you'll see that there it is. There's the tools folder with those files in it. And so when I'm deploying out a Chocolatey package, all I need is this new package, and that's going to allow me to make that deployment happen. So let's take a look at what it actually built for us here. And we're going to get a little closer look at this. But it's very clean as compared to what we get when we were using the open source side. And so there's a bit of that smoother experience showing up. Another thing that is interesting is that MSIs really are not that difficult to automate. I think that's why people love them. It's really about just ensuring the right arguments. It's pretty much a standard across all MSIs. Now, some MSIs do need additional MSI properties like licenses and other things to be able to install properly. And in those cases, we're going to have to provide that into our silent arguments as well. Now, keep in mind, one of the things, some ways that we go figure out what those silent arguments, those additional MSI properties are, is we're going to reach out to the vendor site, see if those are listed there. They probably are. Go out to an unattended forum like IT Ninja and try to discover them, and then pull those in. Now, or if all of that fails, we're going to end up using Orca. Chocolatey for Business is really giving you a shortcut here, because all you need to do to see those MSI properties is scroll down. All those MSI properties are extracted directly from the MSI, so we know that we have the right MSI properties for that particular version based on what it pulls out. And we can just bring the ones that we're looking for. There's quite a few here for this particular installer. We can pull those right out and then call that. Now, one of the interesting things about these silent arguments that not a lot of people know is these are the default silent arguments for this package. Using install args or using install argument sensitive, or both in combination, I can actually change these arguments at runtime without having to rewrite the package. So I can overwrite these completely, or I can just append to them. And that's particularly handy. Now, if I do want to change the install directory, I can do it on the command line, or I can use this install directory switch right here, or option parameter, that's going to get passed through as well. All right, now taking a look at one of my favorites to look at, and that's going to be our 1Password package that we created here, 10 meg. It's got everything it's going to need in it. Let's take a look at what we got for our install. Now, note that it figured out automatically this was in a setup, so it gets all those good silent arguments to that, and it gets us very well set up for deployment with Chocolatey. Now, because it was able to do that, I got all of these packages here, and so I'm going to look at actually adding a couple more packages here, and then we're going to push some of these up to our ProGet repository that was set up. So now, one of the things is I got a 1Password package, and I've got that deployed across my environment somewhere. Now I need to get an updated version of it, maybe for security purposes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click on it and either create Chocolatey package or create Chocolatey package without GUI. In this case, I'm going without that GUI, and so then I get a package created in a matter of seconds again that I can take and put to that repository. In this case, it's just right here. And the other aspect is I'm going to create one more package here, and we're going to right-click and create Chocolatey package, and we're going to go get that 64-bit edition as well, and then we're going to actually take a look. I don't know if we'll customize any of this, but the great thing about the UI, the package builder UI, is that I have the ability to make a lot of customizations here, and I can also do these customizations on the command line as well, but that makes for a very long command line, and so I don't typically go that route. And one of the things you notice here in the Package Builder UI is it does have this Programs and Features tab. That allows us to generate packages directly out of what's installed, and maybe we'll just learn that. We've got a couple of minutes here, so let's do that, and cut that off and kick it off now. Looking at Programs and Features here, it's just looking through everything that's installed and going through it very quickly, creating packages. Now, the interesting thing is when you have all those installers somewhere, we recommend going that route because this isn't going to give you anything additional. It doesn't, let's see what we got here. So it's going through and it's creating these packages for me now. In a lot of cases, what we're seeing is these packages, some of these packages are fully automated. So like Charles here, which is 71 meg, you're seeing this, and this is kind of where our 500 megabyte threshold that we see with a lot of organizations, where we recommend about 500. We're able to extract out that local MSI that was cached. And so when you install a package with Chocolatey install software, the package size is 71 megabytes. It has to be that 70 meg. It's going to be that size, and then that packaging gets extracted. And after the install, you can actually clean up that packaging, but you do have a little bit of space used. And then that's going to go into Programs and Features or wherever that software installs, if it is an installer. And so then there's that space. And then if it's an MSI, it's going to get cached locally. So you can see that 500 megabyte package actually could be a lot more of a hit or a footprint to that system. And so that's why we typically recommend trying to reduce that footprint a bit once you go above a certain threshold. We like everything embedded in the package because that makes for the ultimate reliability when it comes to packaging. However, we do understand that sometimes space is a concern, and honestly, space is cheap, but it ain't that cheap, right? Now, another thing I mentioned is that some of these didn't actually generate packages. So if we were to look at Ruby here, we got a to-do list, and the reason we get this to-do list is we don't have the executable installer get cached, and so that's why if we could point this to an archive of installers and let Package Builder use that instead, it's going to get more of those packages ready to go. And so all it's saying in that to-do list is drop in the installer here. If you're going to do both 32-bit and 64-bit, drop both of them in here, and then right-click and open this up, and then just tell me the name of those files, right? And then you're going to be able to do everything else because it knows everything else it needs. And once you've done that, you just come right-click and compile that package. Now, a couple of additional things we'll be adding is right-click and push to package source, and we'll get a nice GUI for that, and that'll allow us to pick where we're going. All right, so now that we've created quite a few packages, really quickly before we start pushing these up, let's take a look at Choco list with only here, and then also with include programs. And there we got a couple of things that are not being managed with Chocolatey. So now we're going to Choco Sync, and we actually have it generate packages for those as well. And what it's doing is just going through these particular things and creating packages. Now some of those don't necessarily show up as things that would get managed with Chocolatey just because they don't come into, they have a parent, let's say. So when it comes to SQL Server here, some of these are components of that SQL Server install. And so when they're listed in programs and features, they actually show up as something that goes with that. So we're not going to sync those particular packages, but we did sync these others. Interesting thing about Choco Sync is Bitbuys SSH server here. After I synced it, I actually had that particular package on one of my sources, and so I just get to learn and that I am 2 major versions out of date. That kind of awareness is something that Chocolatey for Business brought to me that I may not have known otherwise, and so that's particularly handy. So now we have a few packages here, and let's go ahead and start pushing these packages up. So over here I've created a feed. We're going to actually create another feed, and we're going to set that feed type to Chocolatey here, and we're going to call it Choco Internal. And we're going to create that particular repository there. And then you see that we can add in connectors, and these connectors allow us to maybe point to chocolatey.org and have it kind of pass through and cache those packages locally, which I think will do automatically for us. We can do licensing filters to kind of do that as well. And there's some vulnerability things that we can do. However, we're just going to kind of go back to our feeds here and start adding a package to this Choco internal here. So we can do this through the UI here, so we can upload. We can push through the Chocolatey command line, and that's going to show us cpush or Choco push, and then we'll be able to pass in this location. Now, this location also right here. So we're just going to copy that, and then we're going to do Choco push, one password. And we want to push that to that source. So you're going to paste that in there, and everything's going to work great. No, it's not. So what we haven't done yet is we haven't set up this for an API key to push to. So we're just going to specify that particular key right here. And for us, that is admin. That's the username and password that's there by default. And so now when we come back to this packaging and we flip this over, we can see that we do have that there. Now, going back to managing this repository, if we were to go to Choco Internal and manage that repository, we could actually set an API key, and this API key would be specifically for this repository, not managed based on your username and password. We actually, I'm pretty sure that everybody's going to recommend it to better reduce any kind of surface damage, that you would ensure that you do use API keys specific for each repository that you go to. The nice thing about using a user-based access is that that user can go against multiple locations and give you multiple authentication to this particular repository. So 2 routes definitely have good and bad about each of them, right? And so let's push up another package here, and we're going to install from there. This time, we're going to pull up our Choco API key. I don't have anything set, so I'm going to Choco API key, and then the question, and that's going to show us that here's where we're passing in a couple of things. Lots of good information here. It shows us how to set up these sources, tells us about source location, lets us know that sometimes the URL to push to is different than the URL that we query. However, you'll see here that it's the same URL for query and push. So now we're going to do Choco API key minus source, and we're going to pass that source back in. So anytime we push to this, we're going to say it's going to use admin. This is going to get that key actually gets encrypted on the machine, so that anybody coming along can't just come along and figure out what that is. You're going to see that this is down a little further. There it is. There's our API keys. So yeah, trying to put that in and trying to use that, that's not going to work for you, because it's the value is encrypted and have additional entropy or salt that goes along with that. So now I'm going to go ahead and push another package up here. So Choco push. I'm going to push up that other one password. I think not type today. We're going to push up that other 1Password package as well to that location. Now, another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to want to be able to query this. So now I need to add it to my Choco sources. And so if I take a look at my list of sources, I want to do Choco source add, and then -s, that particular location. This is going to be open authentication to be able to query it and see it. So I don't need to pass anything else, but I do want to allow this for self-service, and I do want to bypass the proxy for this one. So there's bypass proxy. And so when I add that source, I did need to do the name of the source. So sketches even me sometimes. And we're going to call that again Choco internal. And now that we've added the source, and we actually didn't give it a priority, so let's do that. Let's make that the highest priority. So that's where it's going to look first for packages, and it's going to update that. Now that we've done that, we can actually see it here and query it both here. So we do Choco search, and then we pass in our source, and we call it Choco internal. So we can directly query it with that short name, and we see that it has one package, but it actually it has two packages. And so when we pass in -all versions, we can see both of those. And then when we're here in the GUI, we go over to that internal, we do see that package as well. And here we have a nice place to make settings, and we also can set up our sources here as well. Typically, again, most organizations, the first thing they do is remove this particular source. So talking just a bit about our priorities as we set up multiple sources, as we'll probably do with ProGet, is you will want to set that priority. The priority is when it finds a package on a source, it's going to search down based on the highest priority first, and priority 1 is the highest priority. And so if it finds a package on that high priority source, it won't go to any of the other sources to try to find that package, even if some of those other sources actually have a higher priority or lower priority in newer versions of packages. All right, so now that we've pushed the package up here, and we pushed the newer version, let's take a look here, and we can see that there it is. And so if we go back to the repository here, I think we can see, actually if we go back to here and look at this package, we can actually see that there are multiple versions that are up here as well, and we can see some information about that package. We can actually promote it, and a couple of other things that we can do. We can look to see if there are any vulnerabilities known about this package. Now, I do want to install that, so I'm going to do Choco install 1Password, and we're actually going to say that source Choco internal, and we are going to do -y. Another thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to install it somewhere else. We're going to install it to programs 1Password, just so that we can see that as well. So now we did install that, and you see that that directory switch got applied, and it passed that to the native installer properly. It tells us where it installed it. And so now that we look here in Programs and Features, we see that it did get installed. We can go look in the directories here to see where it got installed. We can see it into this Programs folder as well. Now, one last feature, and then we're going to have to flip over to questions, just so we have plenty of time to address any questions. If you do have questions, please feel free to ask. Those are being collected right now. So now, somebody manually install that 1Password, and so then the next time that I run Choco, any command, Choco is going to have that auto sync happen, and we want to see, in this case, I'm going to run list local only just so I can see that. And you'll see that auto sync, it actually pulls that package out, and then when it shows us those packages, you won't see it there. So if we go over here into here just to kind of show you what it does. Instead of going into lib, it pulls it over to the synced folder, so it gets synced out. That way, in case you do need to get access to any packages that got synced, you do have that ability as well. All right, let me switch the screen. Ready for questions.
All right, that sounds good. All right, let's start off with a question here from, well, another Patrick. He was curious if Choco Sync is available now, and it looks like it is. How would he go about making sure that he had that set up?
So in our documentation, so if I'm just going to head over here to the documentation, I'll bring this over here. We can see package synchronizer. So this sync command the usage and the way to set it up. All you need to do is ensure you're on the business edition, turn on preview features. We're going to come out of preview features real soon. So there's a couple of interesting little quirks in there that it has. However, it does function quite well. Another thing that I can do, I can sync just a particular item, but a lot of the setup for most of these business features that you're going to find is noted here. So that's how you would do that. There's the known issues. Side by side. And actually, that's kind of tiny, so let's make that a bit bigger so it's easier to see. Next question.
While you've got the website up, actually, we had a question about pricing for MSPs. Where can they find on your website? Or are they not listed?
It is actually listed. When you go over here to pricing, MSP didn't turn out to be one that was super big for most folks at first. However, it is down here in the FAQs, and there's a link. Just kind of slide down until you see a picture. There it is. So there's the way to purchase MSP. The way it's priced, it's $300. I'm sorry, $3 per year per node or per computer where you're going to be managing Chocolatey. So it's a little bit more competitively priced than what you see with Chocolatey for Business. If you're trying to understand the difference in features, this little compare editions here, you're going to see Pro and MSP listed together because Pro and MSP are very similar. And so there are some features that I went through, kind of focused on Chocolatey for Business during this talk and open source and the differences there. I didn't really concentrate much on what was available through MSP, but you kind of see what's all available there for that particular one. Other questions?
Wonderful, yeah. Multi-site replication, which I believe is from ProGet. Do you know if there's a bandwidth throttling option?
I do not. That would be a great question for Inedo.
And it is a great question for Inedo, and Patrick, we'll follow up with you a little later on that regard. All right, here's another Chocolatey question. When is the first release or demo of the Chocolatey management UI due?
So that's coming up really soon. So we have projected for late June, early July, and we're getting really excited about it. Once we do have that available, you're going to see probably a lot of feature hints and other things that will start kind of flowing through actually really soon. You're probably going to start seeing some like screenshots and some other things. Follow Fervent Coder on Twitter, Fervent Coder right there. And that's a good way to see those, or just follow Chocolatey NuGet on Twitter as well. There's also a Facebook page for Chocolatey. You can find right from the bottom of chocolatey.org. That image back up. If you're over here and you're on the front page, any page really, got nice links over here to each of those places. So,
wonderful.
Other questions?
A few more questions. Looks like we'll be able to fit most of them in. We are getting close to our time limit, everyone, but we'll probably go a few minutes over here. So the next question is, Rob, do you have any idea of the notification of a new update? Do you have any idea on the notification of a new update for being an available feature?
I think I understand the question. Let's go two routes. So if we're talking about like inside of each of those screens when a new version of a package comes available, we have an upcoming, actually we didn't even list it in here, but we have an upcoming feature called Chocolatey Toast. And so some people don't like it, but some people do. They really want to see that, oh, I got new versions of packages, so I should probably upgrade. And so we'll have a little toast that can pop up as we'll add into that Chocolatey agent service. And as far as finding out when new features of Chocolatey become available, one of the best ways is we have a couple of different mailing lists, and a good way to get to that is to come to that support link right there. And even in open source support, I think we have a link off to all of our different mail lists. Actually, I lied, it's just that one, but maybe over here in the docs, yeah, there it is. So there's a release announcements only mailing list. That particular mailing list is going to get you really low trafficked information only when new features come available. But we also have our blog, our newsletter, and then, of course, following on Twitter is a good way to get some of that information. If you're a business customer, one of the additional things that we do is we put you onto an additional list, an advisory list. And so if we find out about any CVEs or security issues, you're going to know about them very, very quickly because we like to keep you happy, and we like to make sure that you do know about those things and have a way to patch that and move forward. And so we've seen that before with 7-Zip when it had a couple of CVEs last year. We were able to really quickly get information out to our customers. And open source users, you got that information really soon as well as we release the new version. However, it wasn't a push. It's more of a you have to go out and learn that information, which you see through our release notes, which are here, or through that Chocolatey announcements list. That is a nice way to kind of get that a little less active, a little bit more passive, knowing about what features have come out. And of course, there's those release notes. We also have our license release notes that you can see as well. So seeing all the different things that we've been doing over the past few years is all kind of available there. So hope that answers that question. If not, feel free to.
The question has followed up and said, yes, he was talking about Toast. So that's great. How does the package support mega installers? I'm sorry. How does the packager support mega installers like Visual Studio so that everything is offline?
So chocolatey.org packages.
We probably have time for one more question after this. So
Sure.
Sorry.
So when we look at those mega installers, Package Builder does not support those in the way that's going to be able to fully automate them. However, if we go over here to let's say Office 365 and take a look. We can use Internalizer a bit here. Internalizer is going to get, unfortunately, only that Office deployment tool down, but we can use that to extract everything else we need to bring that into the package. Notice there's already configuration XML here, and so I'm able to take advantage of that. And actually, this is not a very good example, so if we were to go to ID Visual Studio, that one's going to probably give us something a bit better. So let's take a look at that one, and lots of information. By the way, you're seeing what I can see as a community moderator. But so there's that admin deployment XML. So I am able to internalize this particular package, and then I would get, of course, that Visual Studio community item as well, and any other things. And so that's kind of nice. Mm-hmm. Now, another thing, I actually didn't even get to show that as part of the demo, but another really nice thing that, let's see if I even have that. Say I wanted to use Choco, download ProGet. And guess what? ProGet's a package, and I can install it with Chocolatey, and I can internalize that. And so it'll get that package, it'll get all the dependencies of that package, and it's going to internalize all of them. And so what that process is doing is making that package completely available offline. Just pull this folder up. And this is going to be a bit tiny. Apologies on that, but you'll see that brought that setup file down with it, and then it rewrites the install script itself to use that instead. Now, it doesn't seem as interesting when we're just really working with one, but let's say we did that with Choco download PowerShell and do that and internalize it. That's going to be pretty major because that's got a lot of components that come with it. Also, of course, you're seeing there Chocolatey does support MSUs as well. Other questions?
Yeah, this will be the last one. And just to let you folks know, we will follow up with everybody who asked a question personally through email later. But here's the last one, and it's a long one. So here we go. This is, can you use ProGet to create a feed pointed at a public Chocolatey repository? Select a package from the first feed, such as like a Java package, and then create a second ProGet feed that runs internalized Chocolatey packages that users would see. And additionally, what tools would you have to aid in auditing changes to a package once it has been updated in the public feed?
That is a great question. So when it comes to, yes, you can do a lot of that. You can bring down a package and cache it locally. That's still going to have to reach out to the internet on that first ProGet repository now. Then you could use that to then download from that with Choco Download and use that to internalize that we just saw here. And that would internalize that, and then you would have to push that package up to that other repository. And then as new versions became available, you have to do that each time. And so typically we see folks use something like, again, TeamCity or Jenkins or Scheduled Task or Scheduled Job to directly download it from that community repository and then push it up to a test repository once it's internalized that package so they can ensure everything works, and then they're going to be able to push that onto production type of repository where they can actually effectively have whatever is doing the insurance of those things go ahead and upgrade or install that particular piece of software. I hope that answers that question. And one of the things that might be kind of interesting is maybe kind of have a nice coupling of the two tools together. That would be kind of cool if ProGet could work with the Chocolatey for Business type licensing and be able to do that internalization automatically if that was something to select. I think that would be really cool. That'd be a great feature request. So I'd say follow up if that's super interesting.
There you go.
What do you think that?
Now we have a new feature request. So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, folks, that's it. Again, we will send out personalized responses to all your questions. Thank you so much for joining us today. And finally, Rob, thank you so much for hosting today.
Absolutely.
All right, folks. Well, we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.